Hello and welcome to Behind the Wall Conversation with Charmaine, where faith meet purpose. I'm a spiritual teacher, a chaplain, and this podcast is all about opening our hearts, our mind, spirit, and soul that impact us directly or indirectly. Today's episode, I have a guest. Her name is Merice, and she have stepped inside the jail with me, and today she's going to share her experience, how she have touched some of the hearts of those who often is forgotten. So whether you're curious or called or ready to serve, this is a place to learn how one can visit and change the lives of many and even our own. So let's welcome my guest, and her name is Merice Coles. And
Yes.
so let's bring her art in. Hello, Miss Lady. How you doing?
Hello there. How are you?
I am doing good.
Great.
Good,
Thank
good,
you
good.
for having me. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And you had a beautiful Sunday. It's gorgeous outside.
It's beautiful. It's very, very hot. I'm in the valleys, so it's
Oh, you're
quite
in the
hot.
Valley.
So yes, I
Oh,
live in San Fernando Valley, so it's pretty hot out here.
okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Well,
yeah.
I'm over here. I'm over here by Huntington Beach, and it's hot as well, but it's not that hot like the Valley. Today, I took a walk on the beach, and it was really nice.
Oh, you're by the water.
Yeah, I'm by the water. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. We're well.
Yes. So thank
We
you
are.
again. So thank
We
you
are in
again.
the desert.
Oh, yeah. Big difference. Big
Big
difference.
difference. Big difference.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you.
All right.
And again, thank you for the opportunity to do this podcast because, people are a little bit camera shy. So, my first question to you is what made you decide to go inside the jail to share your story with the ladies?
Um, I think for me, number one, I've worked with students from all areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so one of the things that I wanted to do was to honestly get a chance up front and personal to see exactly where some of my students came from, to see the history behind some of the relationships that I have formed with students, to see some of, to hear and to touch some of their personal experiences that they brought to school. So, getting that opportunity to be able to go into the prison was a way for me to get the actual experience, um, and hear the stories from the ladies about their backgrounds, about their history, about their experiences, um, and some of the education that
Mm-hmm.
were given to them, unfortunately, were misleading. And some of that education took them in the wrong direction. So I wanted to go in and hear their stories and to kind of get a sense of, um, direction on how to help the students that I come across because I currently teach. So, how to help some of the students, not maybe all, but for those who are willing to be open and listen, to help them, make better choices.
Okay. I have a question. I didn't know that you interact with some of the students who came from that type of jail setting and you teach them.
Oh, yeah, their parents, uh,
Mm.
their brothers, their cousins, aunts, uncles.
Okay. So it was the
So,
environment.
yes. So
Okay.
That environment, absolutely, yes.
Okay, got it. Well, I'm gonna come around. I'm gonna come back to that one because I did not know that. So then that
Mhm.
definitely gave you a big eye opener by going in there. So my next question I have: can you walk us through what it felt like entering the jail for the first time at Linwood? Have you been at Linwood before? Was that your first time at Linwood?
No, that
Okay.
was my first time. That was my first experience. Not my first experience um, going into a jail cell,
Mm-hmm.
because I have taken my students into um, the court system.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken them to the Inglewood court system, and so some of them have had the experience of being locked in a jail for maybe 30 minutes to see the feelings, and some of them who have been in the jail cell did not want to um, have that experience again.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and so this for me though was an entirely different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary because initially I felt, oh, I've been inside a jail before, but actually walking into that particular, what gives you kind of like a false sense of dormitory style experience, but when those gates slam shut behind you, it's a whole different chilling um, vibe that goes through your body. So for me, I started thinking the thoughts that some of those women may have had as they too were locked in for the first time. And so to me, that experience felt like it was it brought for me a heightened sense of my awareness of where I was. And I could even so much as stretch my imagination to kind of think what they must have experienced as they walked through those doors. And one of the feelings I had, it felt like a knife being shoved into you without caution. That somebody was now locking in locking you into a place where you had no anonymity, you had no um, autonomy of who you were anymore. You had become the property of the state of California, and that was frightening. It was a frightening experience.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that because some people don't realize, but exactly what you said and how you felt is what the ladies do feel their first time coming in. And so what I have learned by going there, soon as I know that somebody is in there, they automatically is on a suicide watch
Mm,
because the anxiety and being in it, behind the, like you said, behind the wall, behind the jails, and can't get out. Someone have took over their freedom, their right, and everything. They go into this attack, body, convulsion and everything. So they put them inside um area and keep them on suicide watch. So I thank you for sharing that because a lot of people, when I bring them inside, once they hear that gate close, they be like, "Oh, hold on, Charmaine, wait a minute. I don't know if I can do this." And I be
yeah,
patient. I said, "I'm here with you. If we need to make a U-turn, I understand." You know what I'm saying? And so once they get themselves together and they just do that deep breathing, then they say, "Okay, I think I'm good." And then I just gently, just walk them. But you did not share with me that you felt a certain way. So for you to say this the first time, I'm really surprised because you didn't let me know that you felt that way. So I'm sorry that I did not even pick it up or detect that you were having something was going on the moment them doors closed on you. So I am sorry, but next time say something so we can have that moment. Okay.
No, no, it's okay. Because let me tell you, I have been in situations where I have been threatened, where I've had gun pulled at me, where I have knives pulled at me,
Mm-hmm.
where I've had to talk my way out of students not taking my life. So, um,
But the thing about it, you was in my care when I bring you in there. You was in my care, so you should have told me, Charmaine, give me a minute. This, I'm feeling uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But I appreciate you being strong enough and just
no,
handle it on your own.
no, I took that minute, took a breath, and say, okay, you're here for a purpose.
Yes.
So this is what you need to do.
Okay.
One of the things I learned with
Mm-hmm.
my students was never, ever to show fear.
Mm. Okay.
Never.
Okay.
Because once they see
Yes.
that you are anxious or
Mm-hmm.
you're a little bit afraid,
Mm-hmm.
it's time for them to attack.
Yes, but the thing about it, you felt that the moment you walked in the door. Nobody see you. That's different compared to going into the modulars. Because everybody feel it when they get to that door and they gotta exchange the ID and them doors closed. Every person I brought in grabbed me like Charmaine, hold on for a moment. But you didn't say anything. So I thought you was okay. But to hear you say this now, my heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry. But anyway, but you carried it well. So thank you.
Thank
But
you.
yes, a lot of people don't understand a woman first time in there, they do go through a lot of anxiety and suicide watch. And they keep an eye on them because they know it's not easy. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm,
So
mm.
so thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, so my next question I have for you is what message did you want the ladies to take away from your story or your message that you came in? So share a little bit why you came in as well. I understand to more or less kind of get familiar, like you said, and find out what is that environment. But also you came in there with a bigger picture of bringing your book in there to talk about no doubts. And so that's really another reason why you wanted to come in there and share because you are an author. So talk a little bit about your book and the purpose of why you wanted to bring your book inside.
Okay. So my book, no doubt, but my first book, no doubt, talks to us about the fears that we carry. Um, just as I walked in to the cell with those fears, and but my ability to sort of dormant those fears so that those women wouldn't feel like here comes another one uh, with her whatever to satisfy her own thing. We've all gone through situations. Um, Luckily for me, somebody was there for me to talk to. Somebody taught me that the power of God is stronger than my power, so that I was able to then use those resources to say, you know what, better choices um, brings better resources. So for me, um, those debilitating nuances of hopelessness and sometimes fear, um, those opposing thoughts that we have that tells us that we don't belong, that tells us that we're not worthy, that tells us that uh, we're not chosen, that we are, that when we get a little rejection, that it completely stops us from moving forward, um, tells us that we're unreliable, or those thinking or thoughts that discourages us from even making an inch forward because fear has taken over our lives. so desperately. Sometimes those come from we want to make other people like us. We want to feel a place of belonging. We want to feel like if we give over ourselves to whomever that demanding person is, because usually it is a demanding person, demanding our time, demanding our spirit, demanding our efforts, and we because we stop thinking of us and we start thinking of the other person. If I just do this right, if I just do that right, if I just please this person, if I just, say the right thing, move the right way, wear the right thing or the right clothing or the right this or the right that, and we completely submit ourselves to other people, we get lost. And therefore, we give ourselves over to someone who is not in our best interest, someone who couldn't care less about what happens to us because their self interest is about what happens to them. So I wanted to share the No Doubts book. Um, God provides resources, and I've mentioned it before. He provides resources, and He provides resources through the people. He he provides resources through environments. And sometimes we end up in the wrong environments. And those environments can challenge us or they can take us over. So if we're unwilling to challenge them, then they will completely destroy us. And so I wanted those women to know that where they are doesn't necessarily have to be the last place for them. That there are people like myself, that there are people like you, that there are people, other people that you will bring in, um, that care about them. We may not have walked their path, but for me, seeing my students coming from those environments, it wanted, I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to be able to help someone else, some mom, some sister, some cousin, some friend, to say, whatever road you started on, you don't have to end it. It doesn't have to be the end of you. So here we are to help you get educated, make better choices, believe in who you are as a woman, believe in who you are as a child of God, and know that no matter where you started from, it doesn't have to be your destination. So that was my purpose for going.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And I just want to just say that is one of the reasons why I bring people in, because when you left, you don't, I mean, I think even when you were there, you experienced their gratitude of realizing somebody really care about us. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like when you're out in society, you really don't think other people around you care because you're out freedom, you're with your family. But when you are trapped in somewhere where you don't want to be and somebody come in and see you, they are so, I mean, surprised that people really think of us while we inside the jail. And I said, absolutely. I said, you have no idea how many people want to be a support to help you, you know. And I guess I'm thinking when they out, they don't see that support, right?
Mhm.
But the moment they get inside, everybody's trying to extend their hand, right? And it's almost as if the child inside is calling out for help, but nobody hears them until they get into a situation. Now everybody wants to say, well, how can I help you? How can I help you? Right? And so that's why I think it's so important to bring people in while they have that moment to be still. Because the moment they're out, they're not looking for nobody. You know what I'm saying? If you're not in their reach to help them, they don't hear you. They're not looking, but while they have that moment, they hear you, they appreciate you, they're going to remember your name. You know what I'm saying? And so I just want to say thank you for that. You know what I mean? And I mean, not everybody wants to come in. Trust me, I ask a lot of people, oh no, Charmaine, I'll just donate. I don't want to come inside the jails. But I will say, and I'm gonna let you share later on your experience and your perspective when you come out. It kind of give you a whole different look at life. But that's later on. That's another question I have for you. So my next question is, how did the ladies react to your story while you were sharing it with them? Do you recall? I know it's been a minute, but I know
It has been a
something
minute.
made it
It
mention.
has been a minute. Um, but and you mentioned it earlier, to honestly see the gratitude that they had, the openness that they had, um, was initially for me like, are they serious? You know, are they? Is this who they are? Or are they like putting on some front about um, having somebody? Is this like desperation? But sometimes desperation is a thing that drives you to make change. So if you're desperate enough to be open to receiving information or to being exposed to a different way of thinking or a different way of seeing something, or being open to hearing something that you can then interpret, oh, I never thought about this in those terms. So initially for me, it was like, oh, okay, are they serious about this? But as I got to know them a little bit more, the more time I was able to speak with them, most of them were genuinely authentic. And I appreciated that because in reality, there's so much fakeness that goes on out in what we perceive to be the real world. So much fakeness that goes on. So it was refreshing, honestly, to be able to speak with them and see them for who they are and the challenges that they face. And some of them realized that if I don't do something different, then I'm going to end up in a different place. But to take the time to get educated, to be open to having conversations from somebody like me who they have no idea who I am, what my story, what my life story is, but somebody who's been and have had the opportunity to walk a different path, and was given mentorship and leadership, and encouragement, and had to be able to do self talk and make decisions that took me in the direction of where I could write stories, of where I could go back to school, of where I could say, you know what? Here's an opportunity that's been put before you. God has opened a door for you. So choose ye wisely. And so being able to do that gave me the opportunity to be able to go in and say to these people, it's not a lost cause. You are not a lost cause. You are a human. You are loved. Unfortunately, you ended up on the wrong end of love, but there are women like myself who are able to learn from being in an abusive relationship, learn from people who were willing to say, are you willing to make this transformation to help you do a better job of you and not give yourself over to somebody else to control and manipulate? So for me, taking that, all that I have, to be able to offer it to somebody else who would be open, whether they were just open for the moment or whether it was something that they were able to use um, in that moment or something that they'll be able to use later on in life. That moment to me was a light that I hope to help them, but it also helped me. So that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I was smiling because I know that you were surprised how they were opening and welcoming you, because I did prepare them that you were coming in. And I will say that sometimes they be like, Chaplain, I woke up this morning and I thought about you and I just knew you were coming in. And sometimes when I go there, they be crying to see me. They said, when you walk in that door, it's like a light. And so they just easily open up to me. And as they open up, I just pour into them. So, it's a beautiful thing when you walk in there. Listen, I can talk to the deputy and I hear him, Chaplain Holland, call me, and so they looking for it. They thirsty, especially when you have that light to give them. And some of them be like, Chaplain, I'm so tired to keep coming back in here. And so you mentioned desperate. Yes, there's desperate. They trying to find that right vessel who can feed into them, that help them. Because sometimes all it takes is the right timing for that switch to go off. And they got it. They're like, I'm out of here. You ain't going to never see me again. So sometimes we don't know when that right time is going to come. But I will say every time that I go in there, I am so grateful to pour into them ladies because they are so open. I mean, they give me the opportunity to take my needle and thread and do a little stitching and surgery and stuff like that with them. And so I just want to say thank you for saying that, because they are really, like you said, authentic. They really open up and they really looking for the right people. And they say, Chaplain, you see us. And so I pour into them because I shared my story as a teen mom and stuff like that. So they know that I ain't sugarcoating them. I'm not coming in here with no BS. You know what I'm saying? And just give you a little scripture here. No, I'm giving it to you real, okay? And so I tell them, I said, look, I said, God tried to get your attention out there, but you ain't have time for him. Now he got to sit you in the holding tank. You don't want to be here. Yes, you uncomfortable. But you got his attention now. Are you listening to him? So that's the beautiful moment that they have with me. Yes. And so when I bring people in, yes, they're gonna be open because they always say, Chaplain, you always bring us something good for us people and everything. So I just want to say thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you for seeing that and sharing that. And the beautiful thing that you got something back from it. Because every time I go, and people say, how do you do that work? Aren't you scared? No, God feeds me based on the information that they share with me. You know what I'm saying? So thank you, because it goes both ways. I'm in there feeding them, they feeding me. Okay. Yes.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and that's what you said. That's what you did. So thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. The next question is, was there a particular moment during the visit that really stood out to you that you can recall?
It was when they realized that I was an actual author. They were like, you wrote a book? And I'm like, you can too. You can tell your story just like I've been given the opportunity to write this book. And this book actually came about through my students from school. You know that whole story when COVID happened and we all had to go on camera and nobody was prepared. So my initial book came about because my students actually encouraged me to share the stories that I have been writing and the poetry that I have been writing with them and sharing with them. So this whole book. So that to me, when they thought, wow, we've some of them have and some of them haven't heard a regular Black woman like me being able to be an author, um, that they too could muster up that courage that they have inside to be able to share their stories as well, and let people know if they could do it, if I could do it, they could do it. And if they could do it, then they can teach somebody else how to do it. So that was, I think, one of the most important piece for me. Um, yes, being able to share my poetry with them, but to have them understand that there is nothing that's impossible for them. Everything is impossible for them. It's whether or not they want to choose to open the gate and let the water, the rivers of water flow through their lives, and to be able to be an example. Some of them were moms, some of them were stepmoms, if I recall, some of them were um, daughters themselves. So all of them were daughters themselves. So the possibility lied with them. And so the things that they thought that they weren't capable of, because whomever may have told them that they weren't, that they weren't capable, um, they could change that narrative. And it was entirely up to them to doing it. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell them all the time, that you all have a story. I said there's a story inside of you that needs to be written so
absolutely.
people can read it. And so what's coming to my mind is that when you're in a certain environment and you're so busy and so caught up with whatever lifestyle you in, you're not thinking about writing a book. Or and if you even seen a book, you probably wouldn't even think it was an African American, because you don't hear many people highlighting African American books. You know what I'm saying? There's always somebody else's book that maybe don't look like African American, right? So for you to come in and show your book, yes, they're surprised, like, oh, she's the author too. Chaplain, you want she? Yes, there's plenty, many more of us. If you just take
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
and be still. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And you'll be
Mm-hmm.
amazed. Unfortunately, in the jail, they don't have a lot of books. There was one time, a couple of years, I think maybe COVID, they used to have like a bookshelf in there. But now I don't know where the books went, but they don't have books in
Wow.
there. Yeah. And so, they circulate the books among each other, but there's no books inside. And so, and I know you
Mm.
donated them green books, God promised, and they love them books. So I appreciate you donated them books. And so
Yeah.
yeah, they really enjoy the books. And so I bring them journals just about every month. I bring them journals so they can write their own story. And so it helps them to pour in whatever they dealing with, to just journal or write poetry, and they'll be drawing. And even one lady said I became an artist inside there. And
Oh, wow.
she drew me some beautiful pictures. And I said, "You did this?" She said, "Yeah." And one time I came in to see somebody, and they said, "Chaplain, your picture is on a wall in one of the cells. Can
Oh
you
my
go see?" I said, "I ain't going up in no cells. I'm gonna stay down here." They said, "No, somebody drew you on a
God.
wall." And I said, "Really?" And somebody said, "Yeah, it's you up in cell such and such." And it just touched me. So yeah. So they have time to do whatever they put their mind to. You know what I'm saying? And by you being there, you reminded them that they can be an artist, just like, I mean,
Yeah.
an author, just like you.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
Thank you again for sharing that. I
Yes.
think sometimes they like my girls, but like you said, their mothers, their wives, their daughters, their sisters, grandmoms is in there, you name it, all walks of life in there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So thank you
Absolutely.
with that. The next question is, how did your past or your personal journey help you relate to the ladies that you met inside?
Uh, a lot of their stories came from abuse. Um, and if you've been in an abusive situation, you can relate. You can absolutely relate. If you have ever been in a situation where someone believed that they conquered you because of your kindness, because of your naivety to not see them for who they are, for your lack of depth in who you are as a woman, as a person. Um, and so, having had some of those experiences where I've had to say to myself, if I do this, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. So I'm going to walk away. Unfortunately, those women, some may not have had that choice to walk away. And they had to make a choice to survive. Whatever the situation may have been, they had to make a choice. And that choice became their consequence. So, thank God, the right words, the right person, the right timing allowed me to make a different choice. So, I was able to move away from that situation. So, I completely understood how some of them ended up in that situation. Because sometimes you have to survive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And yes, there is a lot of young ladies is in there due to domestic violence,
Yeah.
and they're on a murder charge, self-defense, you name it. There's a lot in that same category. And I will say that some of them, um, speaking on that, I have learned that California do not have a law on that. And so some of them are in there for murder, but they do have a chart where they have called the police so many times to come out,
Mm.
restraining orders, and all that. Um, uh, what's it? Medical records, a
Mm-hmm.
broken jar, broken ribs, and stuff like that, and that has helped them to not be in there on a murder charge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have learned is that you have to do something, and by not doing nothing, that's where the serious consequences come in when you're dealing with domestic violence
Yeah.
DV. So thank you for sharing, and I hope this here message has helped somebody, you know what I'm saying, to understand who's
Mm-hmm.
going through domestic violence, because some people don't want to call because they love some person, but
Mm.
to a point that puts you inside there and you don't have nothing to support you, and you can tell the judge domestic violence, he did this, but you don't have nothing to prove it, you know what I'm saying? So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so my
Absolutely.
next question is, um how did the visit change any of your views about incarcerated women, or the justice system?
Mhm. Wow, that's a loaded question.
It is. It is. But be gentle. We already know what it is. You know what? Speak from your heart.
um, how did it change my personal perspective? Um,
I'm gonna read the question again. The question is, did the visit change any of your views about incarcerated women or the justice system?
Okay. Uh, it it helped me to take a deeper look at how we educate each other, of the education that is being offered in our home settings, in our home environment, um, in the unfortunate um, living situations of maybe a single mom who has not had, who have not been given the opportunity to be educated and have had to work to take care of her children, or have been in, many of my students were generational recipients of the welfare system. And so nobody in the family thought to say, we need to stop this. We need to put an end to this. So I'm going to make sure that this child goes to school and this child gets educated and this child can come back and teach us so that we can put an end to this generational curse, because that's how I see it, as a generational curse. Um, and I've also seen where I ran a program where I taught my kids to find employment, to become self sufficient, to uh, not depend on the system, but to become self reliant, and to be able to build themselves from out of their situation. But I also found that they had parents who would take every dime they worked. And that really bothered me, because here is your child that is really working hard to dig him or herself out, and you are doing this whole crab syndrome where everything they earn, you take it from them. So how are they ever going to learn to save? How are they ever going to learn to build some kind of financial stability for themselves when you feel like they owe you every dime that they work? So that mentality, if we don't go into our communities and go into the homes and teach parents, then we're lost. And we will continue to see this kind of behavior. We will continue to see predatory behaviors coming out of our communities. If people like me and you
Mm-hmm.
don't find it within ourselves to be able to say, it's not it's not our business, it is our business,
Mm-hmm.
and it is our responsibility to be able to go in and teach what we have learned, maybe what somebody else has taught us, always what somebody else has taught us, because whether you get that information from a personal level or you get it from an educational level, but you're getting that information and they're not.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I thank you for sharing that. And that was really the question that I was trying to get from it. Because like you said, that mother who takes everything from the child as if the child owes her, she is leaving a habit for that child. So here it is, mother taking from me. So now I'm gonna go out and repeat that cycle and take things from other people, even things that don't belong to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you have a lot of young ladies in there for shoplifting, thinking that
Yes.
they can go take anything.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Or the world owes me. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And
Mm-hmm.
so I totally understand. And so for me, when I go into the jail and I see the woman incarcerated, that gives me the opportunity to help those on the outside, like you're doing with the teaching. So when I see girls or whatever, I'll stop and I'll talk to them and I'll give them a compliment or, something they'll say. And they say, "Can I give you a hug?" "Yes, I can come here, give me a hug." And I just hug them because sometimes maybe they haven't had a hug. You never know what
That's
environment that they deal with, right?
so
But long as somebody see them, you know what I mean? Just because they little or they not like adults like us, I still see you beautiful. I just got a award for an event, and me and my girlfriend was out, and we all wanted to take a picture. They said, "Oh, take a selfie." I said, "No, I'm gonna find somebody." And so this young girl, she probably maybe was 18, 19, sitting with her mom and dad. She looked like she did not want to be there whatsoever. So I said, "Excuse me, excuse me." I said, "Can you take a picture?" So she got up and took a picture, and she kept, she like having fun with it. And then after that, I said, "Thank you very much," and I gave her a big hug. Mom and dad looking at me like, "What are you hugging my daughter?" I think she needed that hug. And I said, "Thank you so much."
yep.
You had that
Yep.
big smile and said, "Thank you very much." And mom and dad looking at me with a smile on their face. And sometimes you never know how you can impact and just shift somebody's perspective, somebody's mindset, just to steer them in a different direction
Yep.
because they say, "Hey, somebody see me, somebody
Yep.
do care about me." So that has allowed me to do so much more in the world when I see women or young girls,
Mhm.
just to give them that love. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if they have got, hey, that smile that day. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for answering that question. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I would love to share this story with you.
Sure, please.
One of my small groups last session before school ended, I have a kinder, very smart, beautiful baby girl, but she had a character trait that was flawed. Whenever one of her other schoolmates, classmates, answer the question that she didn't answer first, she would pinch them. She would go under the desk, pinch them. And the first time I saw her doing that, I was, did she just pinch her for answering a question? And I realized that this is a learned behavior
Mm-hmm.
that she picked up
Mm-hmm.
and she was displaying it as if it was something good. And the first time I saw her doing it, I was like, she didn't just do that. So I just looked at her. I didn't say anything. The second time I saw her do that, I had to address it because if I allowed her to continue being abusive to another classmate, that would have been my fault.
Mm-hmm.
As her teacher, that would have been my fault. And so I said to her, "What was that behavior?" And she said, "I didn't do anything." I said, "Yes, you did." I said, "Let me share this with you, my young scholar. You do not take the light from your classmate. That's not what we do. When someone else in your group answers a question the correct way, we are happy for that person. We do not dim their light in this classroom. That's not what we do. That's not why you're here. That's not why any of your classmates are here. We learn to give each other praise and respect. We do not dim their lights. So I said, are we in agreement? She said, yes, Miss Cole. I said, okay, let's move on. A few weeks later, we're back again, and I saw her attempting to do it again. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she realized she's not going to let me get away with this. So I looked at her and I said, are we in agreement? And she said, yes, Miss Cole. So I said, let's get on with our learning. So if we don't catch these behaviors early and address them in a way that is not going to make a child feel terrible about themselves, but to teach them another form, a more positive form of interaction, then it's our fault.
Absolutely. How old was the child?
She's in kinder, so she's probably about 5 or 6.
Really? And so when you told her to not dim nobody light, did you have a conversation to find out who's doing that to her, who's dimming her light?
No,
No.
I could not
I know. Okay.
have
There,
conversation.
there's a line.
Yeah,
Yes. But I will say I'm just curious because you're educating her to not do that, right? So I'm just wondering, what did she take back home to the person who kept doing it to her?
I,
Did she interact with them and said, "Don't do that to me" or something? Something had to take place because just
I
not in the classroom that shift took place.
yeah, yeah. I was her intervention teacher,
Okay.
so I pulled them out in small groups. But
Mm,
I did point it out to her core teacher,
okay.
and I said to her, "You need to pay attention because this is happening."
Mm-hmm.
And her core teacher said, I don't see that. I said, okay, well, I do. So I'm letting you know that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And about a week later, she came back to me. Her core teacher came back to me and said I was in the classroom again. And her core teacher came back to me and she said, "You're absolutely right."
Mm. So it's still happening.
And
Well,
I had to address it with her.
again, the young girl,
The core teacher
poor teacher. Okay.
had to address it with her
Okay. And
because it's apparently something that she's been doing,
mm-hmm.
only nobody caught it.
Mm-hmm. And because you have a smaller class at that moment, you seen it. It stood out. But that's interesting. Interesting. So I'm just curious. You know how us as parents, parents used to that meet down there. Where was she pinching the kids at the leg? Did
She
she
was
go?
she was pinching him on the arm.
Oh no. Well, we already know where that comes from, right? Yes.
She was
Interesting.
pinching him on the arm.
Well, thank you for helping her to see that that is not the way to go. You know what I'm saying?
You don't dim someone else's light
No, because they answered
because
the
you
question.
don't appreciate that they answered the question.
Mm,
No, you don't do that. That's not okay.
mm, so obviously somebody was doing it to her.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently, yes. Well, hopefully that stopped. Hopefully went home and said, "Mama, we don't do this," or whoever was doing it.
I,
But
I hope that
yes,
that was a lesson that she was able to take home and share.
yes, that
Uh,
part.
to change something
Yes,
uh,
yes,
at home.
yes.
So you know, and the women in prison, unfortunately, someone was not there to
Correct.
change that direction or to
Correct.
change that
Absolutely.
trajectory in
Yeah.
which they were going, so that
Mhm.
they would have they would have more tools in their toolbox to
Mhm.
be able
Absolutely.
to pull from.
Yes, absolutely. Well, long as me and you and everybody else keep going in there, we're gonna give them some tools to help them. So when they go on out, they're gonna be
Absolutely.
good to go. That part.
Absolutely.
Okay, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
I have three more questions. So let's see, which one is this?
Woo!
Did you learn from the late? Oh, is that too many? I'm so sorry. Okay, all right. I don't know. Did you answer this one? Okay, I'm gonna say it again. What did you learn from the ladies or the experience itself that you didn't expect?
I think what I learned is that never put yourself above someone else,
Hmm,
because you don't know what can happen with life. You have no idea what can happen with life. So don't ever be judgmental um, regarding someone else's situation, because you don't know what that person have had to go through. So that was,
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Because you don't. And
you don't.
I will say we are so stereotyped that we always judging somebody. And when I was working with the human trafficking girls and mentoring to them, and then I go into jail and I see them with tattoos on the faces, I used to always say, why are people getting tattoos on it? It don't make no sense. And when I got educated about it, it's not their choice that they wanted to do that.
Mm-mm.
That is the lifestyle that indicates that they belong to somebody else. And it just touched me. And I said, God, thank you for opening my eyes. And so, because as I know, then when I'm out in the world and people having conversations and they'll see somebody, and I'm like, unless you walked in their shoes, you have no idea what's going on. And I educate people. Even when I'm in Toastmaster, I share stories in Toastmasters, to let them know. And they say, wow, what an eye opener. You helped us to change our perspective of judging people.
Yeah.
Absolutely, So thank you for sharing that, because that is so true. I have learned so much. Don't judge. Like you
No,
said, anything can change in a blink of an eye. You never know what's your lesson, because everything is a lesson. You know what I mean?
everything.
Everything is a lesson. So
Yeah,
just show gratitude that you appreciate what you're going through.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
two more questions, and I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one is: if you had one more minute to speak to the ladies again, what would you say?
Whew. Um, choose you first every time. Choose you first every time. Don't ever allow someone to dim your light and take your power. Choose you first every time. You are worth it. You are valuable. You love you. No matter who tells you they love you, make sure that you love you first. And that's what I would say to
Thank you for that. Even growing up, I never heard them words, right?
them.
So just imagine, do you think they will ever hear these words out in the world?
Oh,
Choose you
God,
first.
no. Mm-mm.
And not even that, even when you say choose you first you got to explain to me, what do you mean choose me first, right? I'm
Yeah.
choosing myself first. I want this, right? But not looking in that context that
Mm.
you're referring to, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because they don't see themselves as valuable. They don't see themselves as worth it. They, if you see yourself as if you go around not giving yourself the opportunity to find out who you are, because someone else is always in control of you,
Mhm.
your value is diminished.
That part.
So you don't have that wherewithal to even think how valuable you are. Um, I was teaching at a college a few years back, about 2 years now, and the was the newly hired administrator came in, and I'm in my class and I'm with some students, and he decided that he was going to be one, disruptive, and two, disrespectful to me in front of my students. I didn't say anything to him, but what I thought to myself was, how dare you want to demolish my value in front of my students? I don't care what you think of me personally, but you're not going to do it in front of my students. So after class, I went back to my office and I wrote him an email. And I said, you will never come into my classroom ever again and disrespect me in front of my students. You want to disrespect me? You take me in your office. And then we can hash it out one to one in your office. But you're not going to do that in front of my students. You're not going to come in my classroom and devalue me in front of them. These are students that I'm supposed to be teaching their self worth. And you're going to come in my classroom and do that? And so he never came back to me, but he responded to my email. And in his most highfalutin, male chauvinist demeanor, said, well, I apologize if you felt that way.
Wow.
I apologize if you felt that way.
Wow. So does that even mean that he even meant it? That part.
Needless to say, he didn't last very long
Okay. Okay.
because by the end of the school year, they had let him go because he had so many complaints against him.
No
But
balance. Hmm.
you have to be able to stand up for yourself. So always choose you first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are so right. So one more question. The next one is, do you plan on continuing as you, I know the question is yes, but my question is, do you plan to continue speaking to others outside of the jail about your journey? And if so, why?
Ah, I've written a poem about it.
You did? Would you
I
like to
did.
share it?
Oh,
Is it in this book or is it your other book, your new book?
um, I don't. No, it's going to be in the book that's coming out. Uh,
Okay.
but uh, it's called. What is it called? What is it called? I'll tell you what it's called. You'll probably have to cut this part out.
Okay.
But
Uh-oh. Should I pause it? I don't know how to pause. I don't know how to edit. This is all authentic, organic, the way it is. Is it
it's called Where Trauma Meets Reality.
okay? That's not bad.
And it says, I'm imagining that any woman who finds herself in prison has experienced a heightened sense of awareness, which has exploded in what feels like, and I've said before, what feels like a knife being shoved into her without caution.
Mm.
My initial thought and reaction was of a long loneliness and numbness as I entered the actual ward or temporary residence of the incarcerated women in jail in southern and South Central California. I resisted the feeling of doom that came over me and immediately went into panic mode. It sent an alarm to my mind, presenting a false impression of dormitory style living. But as I continued onto the den of women with minimal space for movement, it registered in my brain that this is a cage like suppression. The loud clanging of the very heavy door slamming shut behind me throttled my ears, my eyes, my head, and my heart into internalizing a much deeper reality. These women are now the property of the County of Los Angeles penal system. I realize that their world is now where their trauma experiences collided with their reality. Each woman's ability to engage as a free person had been devastatingly narrowed. Its main objective had deliberately shaped their choices to be dedicated by a system of rules and regulations carried out by the officers hired to be their overseers by the local government. Slave mentality quickly rushed into my mind, leaving me in a sorrowful state of despair. They were now the gatekeepers, posted to restrict access to the woman's freedom. My heart sank as I met with them, saw and heard their fears, hurt and possibly false narratives of their behaviors to which they lost control, and unfortunately led them to this moment in time. Somewhere in their minds, they are sheltered from the outside world, living in a new reality, learning how to cope and survive the nightmares in the aftermath of their fractured lives. Some are still processing the truth as to whether they were set up or still swimming in the illusion of not owning their part in their actions that removed them from the dangers or brutal nature they found themselves in. The truth remains to be identified for them as well as their children and their families and the families they left behind. The burden of proof now lies in their hands to address the dysfunctions, brokenness, promiscuity, promiscuity, false promises, or brutal undertaking that drove them to react. It's entirely up to them to take responsibility for their actions or challenge the difficulties to resolve and overcome the traumas that led them to become caged rabbits. My visit allowed me a limited insight to try and understand their existence in a place where I don't believe I could possibly function with any sense of normalcy. Even in my overwhelming capacity to desensitize my emotions, it presented a challenge as I saw women after women making the best of an impossible situation in my mind. My desire to help the women came to an understanding to search and research the best of themselves with the clarity that they are the only ones who can refuse to allow other people's words to cripple them, to cripple who they were meant to be. My decision to help brought me from a place of working with young men and women, children, especially children, bringing me to realizing that this can happen to anyone without the ability to use critical thinking prior to charging into reactionary position, because it has the potential to create complete chaos and the consequences might just be irreversible. Where trauma meets reality is an ongoing process for women who find themselves in hostile environments, situations, and positions where they see no positive outcome. The fact was a sobering reminder that too many women are victims of traumas and therefore they become stuck trying to escape from the devastating effects they face. It appears to be very little intervention prior to their convictions. It narrows their perspective and their approach on how to handle their power to change what's happening. They're powerless because our communities are being targeted and trampled on without clear solutions and transparency as to how to help women and children govern their emotions before falling into volatile conflicts of abuse, addiction, and deceptions of adults, decrepit tendencies, and unsafe conditions. Therefore, they behave in a reactionary manner, landing them in the open mouth of the lion, the Los Angeles County penal system. How can we help? By taking the time to respond to the needs of our children with early childhood education, beginning with behaviors we tend to ignore, Serving in elementary, middle, and high school with meaningful relationships, we must take the charge in providing effective, affordable, collaborative programs with specific resources, including education, housing, social and emotional support and services, provide medical accessibility, mental health service with social structures. It is our responsibility to intervene before bad decisions take root. We can begin in, before school, and after schools to help them navigate the treacherous challenges facing them daily. People, it is preventable and treatable. Otherwise, they will become victims of a diseased society.
Hi, dear. I have one of them buttons where it clap. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
That
But
was really beautiful. I
I,
love your experience. But somewhere I didn't see my name in there. Chaplain Holland bringing her inside the jail. But it's you're gonna add it in there.
yeah, I will. I
Okay.
will definitely add that in there. But I wrote that like right after I came out of there because
Did
I
you
didn't want to
really?
forget it.
Wow.
So I wrote it like right after I came out.
That was meant this here podcast was meant to be. Who would have thought you wrote that?
Um, I don't know.
And I know we did an informal interview, but it wasn't professional, so I couldn't post it. But that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. And I mean words, I mean the words said enough. I mean, is that book published or that's another book that's coming
Now
out?
it's coming out.
It's coming out. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you have this is the third book this will be
Yeah.
your third book.
Yeah.
Well, for as closing, because that was my 10 questions I have for you. But as closing, is there any final remarks? I know that was the final remark, but how can somebody get your book? Tell them where can they purchase your book
Uh,
and what kind of
my books are on Amazon. And there's a third book, my third book that's coming out. It's called I Belong.
okay.
Uh, no matter what we've gone through, you belong. You belong to a God that cares about you, and you belong to people who love you. I know that women often get into situations where they think they belong, but unfortunately, they're treated as though they don't belong. So I want them to know that they belong. So that, but you can get it on Amazon. So that's
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I'll put, when I post it on YouTube, I'll put the links and everything for you. So,
okay.
but again, I just want to say thank you again and let me
Absolutely.
know when you're ready to come back inside.
Oh, I definitely want to. I
Okay.
definitely want to.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
we'll put you on the map for March. I mean, for
Oh,
July. Let me know your schedule for July.
okay.
And
All
then
right.
let me know. And then I'll put the paperwork through to have you come on in there and talk to some ladies.
I have my daughter's getting married, so I
Oh,
have a
that's right. That's right. Okay. Well, you let me know
pepper.
when you're
So
available.
it July might be a little cramped.
August. We could do August. Whenever your spirit say, okay, you know what, it's time for me to go
Okay.
revisit and go inside there with Charmaine. Don't hesitate. Just give me a
I
call and we're
definitely
gonna make it happen
will.
for you.
I
Okay.
definitely will.
I
Thank you
think
so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for inviting me into the prison to just get a glimpse of the life of women who have not been taken care of the way they should have been taken care of.
hmm
And hopefully, I can be of help to help them realize that they are valuable and that they belong.
well, you are more than welcome, darling. And again, thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to have you on a podcast. And so I just want to say thank you for that and everything that you do, helping the young generation, the youth, your journey, everything. So I just want to just say thank you.
Thank you
And
so much. I
yes, it is.
appreciate
Yes, it is truly.
it. And I would love to go with you again, Chaplain.
Say no more. I will have you with me. Will you
All
let
right.
me know when? So, with that being said, the closing remarks, I just want to say thank you everybody for joining Behind the Wall with Charmaine. Today, I pray that today's conversation stir something deep within your spirit by renewing your consciousness of compassion or even a calling to serve or donate. Remember, behind every wall is a soul that matters to God, the creator, and the universe. If you feel led to get involved, let's connect. My information will be in the link below. And until next time we meet, stay faithful, stay present, and keep showing up because love always show up. Thank you again.
All right.
Peace.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, darling. Keep hitting.